Fantastic, Craig. Thank you so much. Definitely looking forward to that moment. But back to today, what are we going to discuss on our very first show of 2023?
Kevin, I wanted to take a bit of a different angle on our first show of the year by actually touching on a few different topics as opposed to focusing on a single topic or report as we've done in the past. And the main reason for this is just that there's been so much shared relating to various tips and trends that are going to influence the world of branding and marketing this year. And I thought that it'd be opportune for us to actually touch on a few of those to kickstart the new year.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait till we have the Chat GPT conversation. Because boy, oh boy, oh boy, I've been having fun with Chat GPT, and it's fantastic. It's really clever, and they're already speaking about upgrading it and Chat GPT 0.4 whatever coming out soon. So yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine, how this is going to influence how we do branding and marketing, and at the speed of what that's going to be happening.
And Kevin, believe me, there are so many contentious reports around at the moment, particularly in terms of the copywriting aspect, the headline aspect, and really how it begins to influence the creative direction of particular campaigns. So yeah, that will be a very, very interesting one. What I do want to do is just allow that for probably in about a month we pick up on the topic, so it allows more of the beginning of the year feedback to come to light on the topic, but absolutely watching it on a daily basis and just trying to get to understand where this is pushing the industry at the moment, because it's very much about that.
Yeah, because once the AI is really updating its own information via the actual internet, SEO is completely thrown out the window, and Google AdWords, and because then who's got the best keywords and who's got the best, it's and again I come back to the point, like, disruption is a necessary factor for the growth of the future of work. If there isn't disruption, we can't evolve. And if we don't have this absolute obvious disruption, we are not going to be better at being humans. And it's necessary. I think I absolutely believe that to my core.
100%. And I love the fact that you've picked up on the issue of keywords, and does the future become more about audio and using the platform to really start driving the connection with audiences in understanding their conversations in real time, and therefore the likes of the series and those things coming to the fore in a very different way.
And I think, just how you engage with a brand, people are going to go, no, I insist on speaking to a human, compared to, no, I don't care if I speak to an AI, so they're going to start having those differentiators where, and I think I know I'm one of them, I don't want to speak to an AI, I want to speak to an actual human, like
Yes.
someone who's really there and who's present and coherent and feels how I feel at the end of the day.
I'm so with you on that one. That's exactly where I'm positioned. But yeah, to kickstart the week, this year's show, Kevin, I came across an interesting article on ANA.net, and then just again as a reminder for our listeners, ANA is the Association of National Advertisers in America. The article is titled, "With the Potential Recession Looming, Brands Want More Data." The article was written by Malcolm Friedberg and was published on the 7th of December 2022. And the article opens with this particular statement. Notes, "The economy has been flirting with a full-blown recession for months, a fear that continues to influence business decision makers. Whilst the obvious signs, such as hiring freezes, employment stats, get splashed across the media, other indicators are more subtle and potentially more helpful. Among business service brands with 1,000 employees, interest in analytics and reporting has increased 14% over the last 3 months, Kevin." So what we also learned from the report that all of the core demand generation functionality that's actually been adopted across these organizations, from the reporting, analytics, etc., has had the slowest adoption, with the primary reason, and something that we're quite familiar with and have discussed at length before, is that marketers don't necessarily understand or do data well. And to this extent, the report actually notes the following. It's relatively easy to run a report. The real question is, however, whether you can actually leverage the information you capture to make meaningful changes to your business. And this, as we've also discussed before, is why a lot of data analytics is actually outsourced to these specific specialist entities, Kevin. But a point that really stood out for me is the fact that manufacturing companies have clearly noted their interest in this data-driven marketing, with up to 616% increase over the 3 consecutive month period of 2 3-month periods back to back in 2022. And a key driver here is actually like the recession-like economic conditions are probably forcing most of these firms actually to explore new and more effective ways of marketing using data and deep insights. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that analytics and reporting is really, that agenda is being pushed, because I think that's part of the evolution, coming back to the same conversation, like the evolution of, if I have more information, then I know how, I can make a judgment on that. So I think
absolutely good point.
Really gonna push that agenda to kind of go, if you're delivering a service, how much data, once you've done your service, once you've delivered whatever, how much data can you give me to support what it is you're doing? And I think that also, evolves how we deliver. From my perspective as leadership by design, when you're working with groups of people and training, right? I think knowing this immediately puts me in the forefront of going, okay, cool. The moment I'm done with the unconscious bias training, I need to have a set of results that I can share and use as data to support what we've just done. And
yes,
because that, I think, would be, again, the putting your brand in the forefront of, being evolving with the times, and I think it's important to know that.
Absolutely, and it's a trigger for the next layer of interest in getting somebody to hook in deeper into your sales cycle as well. Very most definitely, Kevin. Yeah, there are 5 key topics that demonstrated significant increase, particularly in respect of these recessionary proof conditions and things like that the large manufacturers are looking at. So the first is social activation, and that signaled 1,865% increase over the 2 consecutive 3-month back-to-back periods of measurement. Data-driven marketing, 663%, as we mentioned. Uplift in modeling, 612% increase. Win-loss analysis, 358% increase. And multi-touch attribution, 341% increase. So really, literally lifting the bonnet of the organizations and getting under the skin of the business to see what the key drivers are, and how analytics is really going to be a key consideration in driving business decision making into the future. And there are a couple of really nice key ideas for marketers to actually consider when addressing the topic of how to use data to drive business performance in 2023, Kevin. And the report notes the following. Three standout points here is this: hire an analyst or someone with affinity for numbers, because many marketers are not capable in the discipline nor drawn to the process of quantitative analysis, very specific discipline. So it's, obviously you'd expect that. The second key point here is that reporting and analytics are actually necessary for success, but they aren't sufficient in and of themselves. And here it's about insights that actually drive success and are necessary to deliver insights so that you get to understand how they impact on business decision making. Identify someone on your team that understands the business well enough to leverage the work of an analyst to derive better decision making. So you see the nice coupling of somebody, an analyst, or someone who knows and has that affinity, to somebody who's actually able to leverage that information and work with the analyst to inform better decision making. And then the last point on this particular topic of interest is actually consider leveraging external expertise in the development of your data and analytics programs. And here, that would include both technology infrastructure and also your KPI identification and ongoing insights extraction. Work with an agency that provides these services to a broad range of industries. They can bring a nice broad range of perspectives to challenge your current thinking. So yes, data key. But the closing statement here is really important. Marketing ROI, or return on marketing investment, and validating the contribution of programs has always been important. But 2023 is definitely going to be that do or die year for making it a reality in many of these businesses, Kevin.
Craig, my only comment to that is know your strengths, right? Like anyone can read data, anyone can read, and kind of look at a graph and go, okay, cool. So this is what we can get out of that. What not everyone can do is analyze it and use it in an effective, forward-thinking fashion. So if you are going to that extent to collecting data, get people on board that know what the hell they're doing and how they could actually utilize and scrutinize that data to leverage the data.
And Kevin, most definitely, the organizations really need to understand the capability of the technology infrastructure in their organizations, because it's if you don't have the right setup, you're not going to be able to extract the right information. And coming out of that, you then really again need to understand how to work in identifying those KPIs that are going to drive the ongoing insights for you to have course correction, because it's a continuous virtuous cycle. Information in, information out. Recalibrate, move on to the next process. The second topic that I want to cover, Kevin, is from an article that I came across on one of my favorite sources is Insider Intelligence, the newsletter dated 03 January this year. The article was titled Formal Retail Predictions for 2023, written by a cohort of Ariel Fager, Sarah Lippo, Becky Schilling, and Henry Powderly. And the article again opens with the following statement. This year will be marked by a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new. While consumers give in-store shopping another go, augmented reality will really help bridge the gap between the physical and the digital worlds. And I thought you'd appreciate this particular approach. So the 4 predictions that they talk about are noted as follows. Prediction number 1, expect more Prime Day type events from the likes of Amazon and other retailers. And interestingly, Amazon last year planned 2 Prime Day events, the first in July and the second in October, the first time that they've done this. And the reason for this is that the Prime Day events generate substantial income for retailers, with the event generating 11.9 billion of online spending in 2022, July 2022, up 8.5% on the previous year, Kevin. Inflation did impact on the sales volume, obviously, with spending on the October event down 40% from the July event. But that in itself, that's probably another 4.8 billion of sales there. And important to note is that the Prime Day shoppers are spending less than the year before, a trend that I'm sure is really going to continue to stay with shoppers until we see some kind of formal global economic recovery. However, the article notes that Amazon's ad revenue growth will slow from 20.4% as measured in 2022 to about 18.8% in 2023. Still significant growth numbers though, Kevin. This again, a key reason behind, or what I believe probably be a key reason behind the massive layoffs being implemented by Amazon in the USA, with 10,000 staff being given notice for the first quarter of this year. It does go without saying though that more Prime Day events can help with e-commerce and the ad slowdowns, with the likes of Walmart and Target also adopting the same tactics here. So definitely going to be seeing more of these special days evolving. Prediction 2, in-store shopping is back, but it's changing. I clearly believe that it's going to grow and get more traction. After 2 years of economic dominance, the in-store shopping is having a strong comeback, with a report in predicting that more direct-to-consumer retailers are actually going to invest in the brick-and-mortar category this year. Categories include dollar and discount stores and a lot more of the fast fashion brands. Really good point to note here is that not all brick and mortar locations are enjoying this resurgence, and many malls are struggling to attract tenants and shoppers, and something that we have witnessed in South Africa as well. You know, you go into the majority of the large malls, there's still a significant number of boarded up stores and empty shop fronts, Kevin. Retailers will have to really rethink their in-store experience, with the major department stores moving from the larger mall-anchored locations to smaller format stores and more accessible regional peri-urban kind of locations, particularly here in South Africa. Retailers will definitely be working hard to become that third place destination where consumers can do more than just shop. Picked up on this previously, and a point that I discussed as far back as 2021, Kevin, is that larger format department stores will definitely double up as distribution centers as retailers look to find that perfect balance in their strategies between the e-com offering and physical retail stores. And as the demand for the physical store is there, but the product range diminishes somewhat, they can actually start using the back of store to become distribution hubs from these larger main mall environments. You know, and in fact, I think I even mentioned the fact that it'd be quite interesting to see how bookstores have a digital shop front, and in the back end they're actually printing on demand with really great production capability that you actually walk out with the book in hand. You know, and that would be something quite interesting to see.
I'm not convinced about the whole going back to the shopping malls kind of. I'm one of those guys that, like, if I can avoid it and if I can avoid public places, like, so I mean, it'd be interesting to see how it does evolve, and you know, what is gripping enough for me to want to go and see it. You know, because for me to actually want to get in my car and go to a mall, I'm like, the only reason I would do that is doing it with my daughter, going to watch a movie. You know,
so yes, retailment is most definitely going to be a key driver in this instance. But it's more about just a movie. It's about, where does the doctor's suite fit in? Where does the dentist fit in? Where does the next value driver in meeting your life needs at that particular point fit in there? Bringing more of the co-workspace into those environments. You've got malls standing empty. You've got parking garages standing empty. Why are we not bringing offices into those environments as well? Utilizing rooftop space for produce growth and things like that. So really taking the mall environment, particularly the larger mall environments that have got great physical strength infrastructure, and bringing more adaptable multi-purpose offerings into those environments. So whilst it might not necessarily be there to see more shoppers going to the environment, it's definitely about how to attract many more other services that can utilize that kind of fixed infrastructure.
I mean, that makes more sense, because I mean, some of the future cities that I've seen online already, the future cities speak about having everything within 15 minutes of where you live. You know, so if the city is built in a way that, you know, you can go to the Pick n Pay, and there's a dentist and a doctor, and there's everything you really need right there, and you live within a 10-minute radius of all of that, and you work there in that environment, and you know, you can go and get fresh groceries on
That's right. fresh produce on the roof. Exactly that. Yes, absolutely.
That makes sense. That's a different conversation. Yeah, I think
produce grown in situ, being used in the restaurants within the environment, just bringing the collective ecosystem to the fore. There is most definitely, Kevin.
Yeah.
Prediction 3 for me is a wonderful one. I've been watching this quite closely during last year with a particular key brands that are operating in this space. And this is the resale is ripe for explosive growth. And the resale market will continue to grow in 2023, driven by consumers who want to not just save the planet, but more importantly, save money as well. According to OfferUp, 93% of Americans say that inflation is impacting on their decision to buy and sell secondhand goods, with 21% of Americans actually noting that reducing their carbon footprint is a top reason to participate in the re-commerce sector. And yeah, I'd be very, very interested to get to understand what the percentages in South Africa would be in this regard, but really a doing good proposition on one end, and then also just trying to acclimatized to meet the different economic challenges on the other end, Kevin. The report also notes that US fashion digital resale marketplace sales are estimated to reach nearly $20 billion this year and are anticipated to grow by double digits through to the end of 2025. Categories outside of apparel will also explore resales, these being the likes of IKEA, which is, as you know, already made big strides in this particular proposition with the repurposing of old and secondhand furniture, and part of a trade-off and discount on bringing your old furniture back to purchase new furniture. And a key point to note here is that the retail market growth, as the retail market growth expands, the potential for mergers and acquisitions will increase. Definitely something to watch, as this being necessitated in the back of companies now teaming up to streamline their operations and expand their customer database. So yeah, watch this space. And then the fourth prediction here is that 2023 is definitely the year of augmented reality. This is about participating in AR shopping. Consumers don't necessarily need the expensive headsets like they do for virtual reality, so very much more an uptake in this particular space. AR is in essence in many shoppers' hands, Kevin, in the form of smartphones, and this being validated by the fact that 91% of internet users actually shop via mobile devices. And it's just a simple layer of a filter on a mobile device to do simple things like simulating couches in a living room, or trying on clothes or makeup, etc., all at no cost to the consumer, because you don't need these expensive headsets. Interestingly, though, while only 13% of adults have actually used AR or VR when shopping, the trend is definitely going to grow as technology improves and becomes more cost effective as well. And really important to note here is that retailers are trying desperately to cut down on returns, as this is a huge driver of lost revenue. And simply by adopting the likes of AR fitting rooms, customers can actually now narrow down their range of items being bought for trial and fitting, thereby directly reducing the number of returned items, which is a significant cost saving to retailers. And they've carried this because the retailers are offering this returns proposition as one of the key differentiators, which has actually now just become, a staple offering in any online retailer.
Craig, but Ingrid, she always listens to these shows, right? And Ingrid, thank you, because she was one of the persons that said this is probably one of the best marketing shows that there is out on podcasts anywhere. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've already had this conversation about AR shopping malls, right?
Yes.
We already had this a year ago.
Yes.
We were talking about how you could actually you could go online and go to a virtual shopping mall and kind of go, okay, cool, I want to go and see what's in this mall, and perhaps then potentially actually go to the actual mall, or you could just order online. Or we've already had this conversation.
In fact, we had Grace as our guest, who was working on and it was in relation to understanding the metaverse and where the opportunities are in terms of marketing and retail, very, very much so.
So guys, if you want to know what's trending in the future and what's happening in the world, tune into the Lunchtime Series marketing segment, because we'll be talking about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Kevin. This is the one objective that I have in the show, is to ensure that on a weekly basis we bring relevant reports and conversations to the fore, and we can put our own spin on these things as we do, and we try and contextualize it relative to the local markets. And the majority of these big reports and influential reports are obviously of international study mandates and the likes, but there's definitely a key learning out of every single one of those that we can apply and adapt for our local markets.
Craig, I do have sort of side note, because my brain is always thinking about the human element to this conversation, which I think is a whole other conversation, but I'm just going to stab and throw this in the air, is suicide, right? And hear me out, right? AR is a wonderful place, or can become, augmented reality can become a complete environment for children, for people to disconnect from their own reality, right? So I'm, as much as AR is there and it's a technology that's going to, serve a greater purpose to a large degree, I'm curious to know how it's going to actually affect human behavior in the long term, because it's a wonderful place to kind of disconnect. I mean, I just look at people who play video games. They're sitting online, they got headsets on, they're speaking to people in Japan and to, California, and they're sitting here in Rudaput or whatever online doing this, and they're speaking to people out there, and they're completely disconnected from their families, from their own reality, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe I don't know. And again, I'm just speaking this into the future. Maybe you can get your mother into your AR reality somehow, so she can remind you to go and eat.
Yeah. So that's very much more on the VR, the VR proposition, where you're immersing yourself into the digital world. I love your last point there. It's almost as if you could create, mother has an avatar that's allowed to come into your VR at a particular point in time as a trigger to ensure that you do come back into reality every now and then. But you do raise a really, really interesting point relative to suicide, or the disconnect with the real world. For some people, their real world is so treacherous and negative that they're wanting to get into a virtual world where it becomes better for them. The challenge is, how do you then segue back into the real world, and what are the issues there? A great point.
And what is the impact that it has on your brain learning, your functionality and your brain capacity? As much as you in that moment doing fake world, and potentially everything that you're experiencing is not reality, it's augmented to some degree. When you get back into reality, what is it doing to our brains, right? And I think that's a conversation that needs to happen, just sort of on the side, that we need to consider.
We need to get some psychologists who operate in this space to come onto the show to have the discussion, because the flip side for me is that the virtual reality space could also be an enabler to enable folk who are having these challenges to see the world differently.
Yeah.
And use the mechanic and the technology to shape is maybe too strong a word, but to help migrate them back into a place of safety in the real world. And when the nuances and triggers are there for them to feel vulnerable and insecure, is again to use the virtual reality world to give them some prompts and stimuli to make them feel better about themselves, and address some of these realities in a different way, to just bring them down to a center of calmness and strength of self and center again, so that when they do step out of that virtual reality world into the real world, they're dealing with it in a better way. So it's a place to recede, collect your well-being, come back out in a better space. Yeah, that's the opposite side of bringing some goodness to it. But it would be great conversation to have, Kevin.
And just one last point on that, Craig. Maybe in the future, in 10 years from now, your VR or AR will come with an age restriction that sort of says, well, is this looking after my child's psyche to this degree, and how are we measuring that? And again, brings back to the data, right? How much data do we have and know about, is this useful? Is it working? Is it not working? Is it supporting my child? And how do we incorporate? I mean, one of the things that, again, it lends itself to this conversation is TikTok in the rest of the world is just what everybody wants to do. TikTok in China is inspirational. So there's a complete differentiator on what the children in China see and are allowed to be exposed to compared to the rest of the world, right?
Yes.
And they know they're doing that because of how TikTok influences how your brain functions and how people are influenced by social media, right? So already there, it's just TikTok, but the TikTok for children in China is being regulated so that it's inspirational. So they are upbuilding themselves constantly. They're learning about presentations and chemistry and science and becoming an astronaut. And It's stuff like that that they're exposed to. It's not people doing, the new trend dance of Miley Cyrus, or
Yes,
there's a
yes.
very different disparity. But again, it's the data, right? What data are we using?
I think we're a long way off from really getting to understand the power of TikTok particularly on the continent of Africa, because it is very much used as a social show-off platform as opposed to a positive outcome platform. I agree with you, Kevin. Yeah. But Kevin, just as as we're getting to the end of our show today, I want to close off by referencing a really, really amazing current and highly relevant report that I actually came across literally 3 days ago. The report was published by Euromonitor International and is titled Top 10 Global Consumer Trends 2023. And as I mentioned, compiled by Euromonitor, at least Euro International, and focusing on the Passport platform, which is their platform for tracking trends, markets, competitors, and consumers. And the report is published annually to provide insights so that companies actually get to know what consumers really want. Whilst not going to delve into the micro detail behind each of these trends, Kevin, I just want to rather reference the sort of the key positioning concept or context of each of the trends defined in the report. So sort of 2 or 3 bullet points per trend here. And the top 10 global consumer trends are noted as follows. The first one being authentic automation. And this is about tech with a human touch. And I like this as the starting point. So while digital is a dominant force, tech can't match human nuances. And you know this incredibly well because you play in the space from a leadership development coaching point of view. And while machines can make convenience and speed possible, the power of emotional connection should never be underestimated. And the key takeaway point here is that businesses need to embrace authentic automation to strengthen the shopper journey or risk customer attrition. Point 2 is budgeteers, and this is really driven on the back of the cost of living crisis. So the biggest dilemma for consumers is to know when to spend versus when to save, especially as the high inflation, higher prices are eroding purchasing power. Consumers are now being much more methodical with their money. The key takeaway point here is that businesses need to implement or develop solutions that help the budgeters actually save while also evaluating their own overhead expenses. The third point is control the scroll. Again, a really great point for me, and this is screen time well spent. So internet activities are transitioning, I should say, from mindless to mindful, but consumers aren't necessarily unplugging completely. They want to consolidate and centralize the platform usage to optimize their time. The key takeaway point here is that the control the scroll businesses now have an opportunity to refine their digital experience with efficiency and integrated capabilities. Point 4 is economic, and this is about sustainability by default. Cutbacks aren't all bad, with the cost-effective options becoming more about limiting and reducing, thereby decreasing consumption and obviously increasing sustainability by proxy. And I really like that statement. Decreasing consumption and increasing sustainability by proxy. The key takeaway point here, Kevin, is that organizations actually need to step up to help their economic consumers save their money and the planet simultaneously. The fifth and midway point here is that game on, entertainment for all. Gaming is now a top form of entertainment. The generation divide is actually becoming less apparent and challenging the typical gamer stereotype. The key takeaway point here is that businesses can now tap into gaming culture to convert, I like this, players into payers, and using gaming to really drive brand positioning awareness and in-game acquisition opportunities as well. The sixth point is the here and now, no time like the present. Consumers are giving themselves permission to have a little, to live a little. They're not abandoning their financial responsibility, but they're definitely taking a shorter term view on their buying approach with some discretionary items. The key takeaway here is that businesses really should create campaigns that actually target special occasions, as well as providing alternate payment methods, which we're seeing a lot more of the lay-by methodologies that can help split the costs over time while catering to their desire for some of this immediate consumption. The seventh point is revived routines. This is about out and about. Consumers are definitely settling into new schedules and navigating a return to reality. They're eager to get on with their lives despite some of the uncertainties ahead, a lot of that driven by economic challenges. Companies should prepare for the surge in the out-of-home consumption opportunities. The key takeaway point here is that businesses need to bring fun, re-engage consumers, and help them attain a sense of normalcy. Point 8, strong point, She Rises. Definitely a big focus on female equality. The fight for women's rights is now louder than ever before, and stronger in reproductive autonomy and sexual health is clearly in the spotlight. People aren't backing down until there's a part of positive change. Really, really great to see that. And the key takeaway point here, Kevin, is that organizations need to be the champion for She Rises, with key focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, sitting at the center of the core values. Again, something that we've discussed at length in a previous show.
Craig, I'm not, maybe I was born in the wrong body, because I want to just say yes. I 100% hope that more people, more leaders, more businesses actively do this and really empower women to that degree, because I think women make far better decisions than men. And we have examples of that in history and in power. So I'm all for it. I'm like, I can't. That point is really significant.
How powerful point. Point 9 is the thrivers. This is about putting life into perspective. People are past the point of burnout, and exhaustion is at an extremely high point at the moment, Kevin. It's consumers are overwhelmed. They're exerting less effort and doing their best just to get by. A real troublesome time for the planet. And the key takeaway point here is that businesses can respond to the so-called world weariness with marketing that actually cuts through the noise and provides products and services that focus on immediate needs. Really, really key point. And the final of the 10 trends here, Kevin, is young and disrupted. The world is a stage. I love this point. Expressive and progressive Gen Zs can now take matters into their own hands as their financial freedom increases. There's a no-nonsense consumer stand up for their beliefs, and they put themselves out there, which is really great. It's about real, raw, and relevant content that's drawing their attention. And the key takeaway for brands is that brands need a crash course on the trend setting and emerging professionals to be in tune with their expectations. And those are the key consumer trends to be aware of for 2023, Kevin.
Thank you for that, Craig. So thank you for the summary and for sharing that with us. We've just kicked into some wonderful load shedding. So before everything else fails, thanks for the insights and some of the trends of the marketing for this year. It's going to be great to sort of step into that and the biggest impact on the industry at the end of the year. So I'm looking forward to that. Craig, have a fantastic week. I will see you next week.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a great one. Look forward to it. Thanks, Amal.
Cheers for now. Bye.